Element number two is that you must have and share your backstory. All right. So who here, once again, I already said it, but all the people that you follow, the people you follow most, do you know their stories? Do you know my story? Let me know in the comment section. Do you know my story? Have you heard my story, right? Other than me, I'm sure you follow other people in the marketplace. Do you know their stories? Have you heard of the things they've been through? Have you heard of the hardships they've experienced? Have you heard of the stuff that they've been through that is essentially kind of, brought them to a tough place? It's very much like where you might be right now, and then allowed them to overcome it, etc. That's very intentional. So yeses are flying in. Once again, that's very, very, very intentional. So let me see if I can get this to work here again. Here we go. All right. So your story should create identification with your audience. So essentially kind of relatability, identification with your audience, and give your audience a sense of hope for the future. All right. So what we want to do is we want to position our story in a way where our audience sees that our audience has essentially been exactly where we currently are right now, or where our prospect is right now. And then from there, we've been able to break through and we've gotten to the other side. So if our story shows our audience that, our audience then sees, wow, he's been exactly where I am. He's gotten where I want to go, or she's gotten where I want to go. And therefore, it creates a sense of hope within your audience. Your story should be made of pains that your audience can identify with and relate to, preceded by a breakthrough which transformed your life and brought you to where your audience wants to go. All right, or at least started the transformation. The big thing that I want you guys to see here is that I'm always talking about the audience. I'm not talking about sharing your story in a way where you're just talking about yourself and talking about how cool you are, talking about all the accomplishments you've accomplished. You want to work in your accomplishments, but you want to do it in a way where your audience sees that you have been able to go from where your audience might be to where your audience wants to go, based on your market research that you've done and based on the clarity that you have about what the marketplace is desiring. Number three, if you haven't created your breakthrough yet, bring them on the journey with you. All right. So it's not quite as powerful. I'll be completely and totally honest. It's always better once you're already in that spot, but none of us start there. And so with that said, if you haven't necessarily created your breakthrough yet, you want to bring them on the journey with you, meaning you would tell your story in the context of, sharing all the different pains, frustrations, struggles that your audience has dealt with, and then sharing how you maybe found a solution. And based on finding that solution, you're now on the path to getting to where your audience wants to be. All right. So it doesn't need to be, again, you being in that place yet. You can have your audience come on the journey with you. And it actually is extremely effective to have your audience come on the journey with you. The thing that I remember most, the example that I remember most, is Mike Dillard was extremely successful in our marketplace, kind of the internet marketing, like MLM marketplace, and extremely successful, had a powerful business. He was ready to move on. He didn't have any experience when it came to investing. He had zero skills when it came to investing, zero experience. And essentially he got up in front of a crowd of people and he said, look, I have no experience with this thing, but I'm going to study this thing. I'm going to get really good at this thing. And I'm going to show you exactly how I do it each and every single step of the way. And just through that invitation to come on the journey with him, he immediately launched an 8-figure business, the Elevation Group. Now, I'm not saying you're going to launch an 8-figure business, right? He had a big audience, but the same can be kind of used and leveraged on a smaller level. And again, you can bring your audience with you. So this is your story. All right. Your backstory makes you memorable and worth following. Spread it through every single piece of your marketing and share it over and over and over again. So you want your story to be in emails. You want your story to be in webinars. You want your story to be, any kind of piece of marketing that you're putting out there, videos, etc. You want to work in your backstory and do it in a way where you always touch on it, but you never overwhelm your audience to a point where your audience just kind of feels like you're always talking about yourself, right? So again, big thing to understand here is that it will make you memorable. So your assignment here is to spend a couple of minutes after, of course, this presentation and get clear on your backstory in the context of our marketplace. All right, write down the assignment, spend a couple minutes and understand, once again, we're creating our story in the context of the marketplace. So we're not just creating, hey, my name is Misha Wilson, I used to play tennis. It's, My name is Misha Wilson. I used to play tennis. I lost everything. I found internet marketing. I struggled a bunch. I failed a bunch. I got evicted. I got kicked out of my house. I, found mentorship. I got started with mentorship. I broke through. Again, the context the marketplace is in, the environment that the marketplace is in, we want our story to be in alignment with where our audience is. Does that make sense, guys? Let me know in the comments section. Does that make sense? And I'll go ahead and move on. And perfect. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. Let me go ahead and move forward. So number 3 is your attractive character must have a moral code. All right. So just having a moral code will naturally make you more attractive to the marketplace, because really no one has a moral code seemingly in today's world. And if they say they have a moral code, they can very quickly and very oftentimes be found breaking it. All right. So the definition of this in this context, to be crystal clear, is just essentially a body of standards that your attractive character must follow, no matter what the harm or situation of personal harm might occur based on where he's at and based on his own character. Right. So essentially, it's not you doing everything perfect all the time. It's not you trying to do everything right all the time, you getting everything just perfect all the time. That's not having a moral code. Your moral code is you very simply having a set of values that you live by, a set of standards that you live by that you must follow, even if it means that you don't make more money, even if it means that you sacrifice something else, even if it means that there's some kind of negative that might happen, because you will not break your overall moral code. All right. So once again, this is not being the perfect goody two shoes. This is very simply you having your own unique code that you live by. So quickly, why you need a moral code. Once again, very few people actually have a moral code. And if they do, they can be found breaking it very quickly. When you have and live by a moral code, it makes you attractive and it makes you stand out as someone worth actually following. You should always be aiming to stand out in your marketing. The single thing that will absolutely kill your marketing faster than anything else is being the same as everyone else, right? Who wants to follow someone who is the same as everyone else? Let me know in the comment section. Who wants to follow someone who is literally the same as everyone else? No one, right? No one wants to follow someone who's the same as everyone else. And so you want to talk about your moral code in order to position yourself as different than everyone else. The key is to figure out what your own unique moral code is and then never break it. All right. So once you figure out what your moral code is, and once you put your moral code out into the marketplaces, this is what my moral code is. This is what I stand for. This is what I stand against. These are my values. These are my standards. Your audience needs to always see that you follow those standards and you follow those values, and you cannot be seen breaking those standards and values. Don't push your moral code down your audience's throat. Instead, essentially let your audience try to adopt it and let your audience try to aspire towards raising up to your level in order to adopt your moral code. All right. So you don't want to tell people you must follow my moral code. You must think the same as me. You must have the same values. You want to share what your values are, share what your standards are, et cetera, with the marketplace. And then when you share those standards and values, you want your marketplace and your prospects to feel like they have to level up and aspire to be more like you in order to go ahead and adopt your moral code. All right. Does that make sense? Let me know in the comments box. Does that make sense? Let me know if you guys are following, and we'll go ahead and continue. Go ahead and type in following if you guys are following. Following. Perfect. Muriel nailed this. Love that. Absolutely. You'll see our speakers use this all the time. Following. Perfect. All right.